let's go through the I message portion here. And the reason that knowing your feelings is so important is because the I message is based upon what you're experiencing in the moment. The it message and the you message are extremely common. Most of us have been using them all our lives. Try to use more I messages in your normal conversation, but especially use them in times of conflict, strong emotion, or confusion. The it message goes something like this. It's really cold in here. Translation, go turn down the air conditioner. It's annoying when someone whines. Translation, I'm annoyed when you whine. It's wrong when kids drink Cokes in the gym. Someone needs to confront you, but I don't want a showdown. It would really be great to come home to a clean kitchen some night. Translation, I'm frustrated that the kitchen is dirty. It must be nice to come to work whenever you want. Translation, you're late. These messages point to a sender who's afraid, insecure, not able to own his opinion. Lots of people use humor or sarcasm when using an it message. My dad, he was recuperating from an accident, and I was taking care of him for a season. And he had a broken shoulder and a broken hip. But we'd be in the house alone watching TV sometime in the middle of the afternoon. And he would say, I wonder what's for lunch. And for a while, I would just say, yeah, me too. Seeing as you have a broken hip and a broken shoulder and probably won't be making it. But it was this kind of old school message style of like, I'm the only one in the house. It's going to be me making lunch. And what this message is saying is, would you please make me lunch? That's the message I wanted to hear, frankly. That's the message that felt more respectful to me, that felt more like realizing that they're asking me to do a favor, to take care of them. I'm like, I'm glad to do it. I'm not glad to do it when I get an it message. An it message just feels dismissive and like disrespect. I wonder what's for lunch. Oh, well, that's a signal. Thank you. A signal. I'll go right now and hurry into the kitchen. So anyway, I talk to my dad and say, hey, Dad, I'm frustrated when I'm the only one I'm the only one in the house with you, and you're basically an invalid right now. And you say aloud, I wonder what's for lunch. It's like a hidden message you want me to make lunch for you. And I feel much more respected when you go, hey, would you please make me a sandwich? That would be amazing for me if you just say, would you please make me a sandwich? I'd be glad to do it. But I can feel inside I cringe when you say out to nobody in particular, I wonder what's for lunch. So I told him. And my dad, at that point, probably in his late 50s or so, he tried. He really tried. And for like 3 or 4 days, he was saying, hey, would you please make me lunch? He'd say, I wonder what's for, would you make me a sandwich? I mean, he was trying. And then after a while, because I told him and because he tried, I was fine with the it message because I didn't feel powerless. I don't know if this makes sense to you, but because I knew that I would confront it, and I knew that it meant something to him, that it was frustrating me, and I knew he was trying, pretty soon I was just bypassing his it messages and just going, I'll make you some lunch, Pop. I hope you get what I'm saying, is that when we feel like a victim and we won't confront things is when they stack up and they bug us. Yeah. When we turn on the light and we go, this is how this is impacting me, and somebody says, I'm sorry, I'll try to do differently. And they even though he's, to this day, he's just probably using quite a bit. He's old school, baby. He's old school. He's using a lot of, yeah, he's got to use, he said, you got a brain figured out. To this day, but just knowing that he tried took all the power out of that thing. It no longer made me feel angry or edgy because I'd confronted, he tried, and I'm like, oh, we're moving on. We're moving ahead. Now, there are probably other things in my life where I've had to like consistently confront, a la Luke 17, like, hey, I need this dealt with, But I found that once I realized I was powerful in the moment of conflict and communication, I could be more forgiving and less offendable.
Yeah, that's good.
Less offendable. Because I wasn't feeling like a victim. I was actually choosing to kind of go, oh, okay, that's your communication, that's your code book, that's all right with me. I can deal with that. The it message. Again, this is when you're insecure, not able to own your message. The other terrible insecure message, by the way, is, hey, a lot of us in the youth group think you are. Hey, I've been talking to a lot of people, and they all think, and this is, talk about old school, this is preschool. I mean, this is elementary land where we're trying to gain. I've talked to Betty, June, and Sally, and Joanne, and we all think that you're a gossip. If you might think that, there might be 10 of you that think that the worship leader can't sing, but if you walk up to the worship leader and say, we don't think you can sing, you're being kind of cheesy. And you need to own your own message. You need to own your message and not try to gather strength from a bunch of people. And to put people in defenses from the very beginning, like, you've been talking to other people about this before you talk to me? How long has this been going on? How long has this been going on? And when we own our messages, we take responsibility for them. We don't throw other people on the grenade like, well, it wasn't me, actually. I actually came for them. I'm the spokesman. I'm more neutral. Yeah, I'm more neutral. Unlike Switzerland in this deal. The you message. This is the most popular and often the least helpful message we send. You better get your act together. You're lazy. You did a good job planning the party. You didn't do the dishes like you said you would. You had no right to talk to me that way. You're breaking the rules, and you know better. You're late. If it's your goal to make someone defensive, use lots of these messages. These produce a volley of you messages right back at you. They are direct judgment. Many a power play has been started with these. It says very little about the sender and builds no intimacy. In fact, these are anti-intimacy messages. If you've received you messages, you know just what I'm talking about. These are the ones we are kind of most primed to defend ourselves against. And we most carry around ammunition of other people's past transgressions in order to fire back at them. You didn't clean the kitchen. Yeah, well, you said you would take the dog out, and you didn't do that. So we think, well, I don't want to get in one of those you things, so I'm just going to not say anything. Or I'm just going to withdraw, make you come find me, or I'm going to pout and bang dishes or cupboards, or that sort of deal. So the you message, actually, we think we need to use a you message when we're confronting people, and we don't. And when we use them, they bring out people's defensive,ness and just reinforces that thing like, I don't want to confront anybody. Confronting's bad. Crisis bad. Let's pretend more than pretending good. The I message, the absolutely most helpful message, it looks like this. I'm cold. Would you please turn down the air? I feel annoyed when you use that tone because whining is unpleasant to me. I feel really glad about the party you planned because everyone had so much fun. I am concerned when you drink Cokes in here because I know it's against the rules. I'm afraid I'll get blamed. I feel confused. You said you wanted to get together, but you seem quiet. I feel angry when you say you'll do the dishes and you don't. I feel demeaned when you use that tone because that's how my father spoke to me. I feel really playful when you spontaneously show me affection because I feel loved. See, saying the good ones isn't as powerful as displaying them. I am frustrated with you that you were late again this morning because it makes me feel like you don't value your job or me. I'm insecure. I'm unsure when you seem to need space because I don't know if I should pursue you or give you some time. These messages are direct. The sender takes responsibility. They let the other one in on the feelings their behavior response has sparked in you. It has to do with the here and now. It's honest and it elicits discussion instead of defensiveness. Direct messages are used especially when I have a problem, a strong emotion, and or an uncomfortable, unclear situation, confusion. The I message has 3 parts. 4 if you're getting really brave. 1, A, the feeling. B, the non-blaming description of my observation of the problem. That is kind of key right there. Non-blaming description of my observation. That keeps the I message from hiding a mean you message in the middle of it. You might have to say when you don't do the dishes, but when you live like a lazy pig, it's not. I feel frustrated when you live like a lazy pig in my presence. That's not going to work. So, a non-blaming, my observation of the problem. And then C, the tangible effects of their behavior, response, or attitude on me. Use the formula all the time. Now, I really mean this. Use the formula all the time. Until you feel until you get good at it. even if you feel awkward, you will find your ability to do this. Like I mentioned, remember driving or dancing, a myriad of skills. How am I supposed to do all this in the moment of crisis when my emotions are going through the roof? You will get better, baby. You will get stronger at these skills. As you use them, you will get more powerful. The next time you arrive in the car somewhere and don't know how you got there, you remember, that's right, I'm on my road to the same thing in my communication style. I'm going to be using brave communication, helpful communication styles, and doing them almost reflexively, almost automatically. Yeah. Benning's just pointing out that when we use a structure like this, it doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel like a genuine, it feels like you're putting on somebody else's clothes. And that's my point with, like, that's how every new bit of learning comes to us. That's how we preach. It doesn't feel authentic. We feel like we're just mimicking our former youth pastor. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel real like I'm driving, but I'm not sure I'm supposed to be driving. Every time we take on a new experience, I'm learning algebra. I have no idea how I got these things. They don't feel like my things. But this is the nature of learning. It is interesting that we're okay with that learner's curve and that kind of rookie curve everywhere else. But because we've been communicating since we were 6 months old, it feels like this is a done deal for me. This is my style. I got to be me. Well, how's it working out for you? Yeah. I mean, you being you. I mean, maybe great. Maybe you're naturally doing these sorts of things. But if there's wear and tear on your connections, if you're feeling like a victim, if you're feeling powerless, these are the tools for you to become gentle and powerful in the same moment. Gentle and powerful in the same moment. So keep using them. They will feel normal. Remember, that's why I took the time to say that I didn't learn these until I was in my 20s. I didn't grow up with them. Somebody came in, handed me bits of Xerox copies, and made me a communication monster. So I believe that you can get information and just start practicing it and doing it, and it'll be transformative for your relationships. If you're feeling really brave, the really brave then make their needs known and their wants known by suggesting some alternatives. So I need, so could we. And so it looks like I feel sad when you use curse words in our conflicts because it feels like incredible disrespect. So could we not use curse words in our when we're fighting? It feels like intimidation. So it's, just using these iMessages constantly. You're going to your senior pastor and saying, I feel afraid because I don't feel connected to you. I'm wondering if I did something that broke your trust in me because it feels like I'm on the outside. And I need some feedback about how I'm impacting your environment. And just get quiet and listen. So you can go to you can use iMessages up to your leaders as you're trying to make an appeal. The way we think about this sometimes is that people go, I can't talk to my leader. It's like, we believe you can talk to your leader. We talk to Bill. I talk to Chris, my leaders. We have frank discussions and conversations, but we have this kind of Daniel stance where we're making an appeal. And as we do it and we're using respect, we're trying to use respect in our up communication, our peer communication, and our communication to folks that we're leading and folks that are younger than us. If respect is just oozing through the whole thing, you can aim your communication anywhere on the proverbial food chain. So the iMessages, some of you were wondering why the positive one is there. It's because it's really cool to give a compliment that shows how their work doing the party has made you feel. So you did a good job on the party. It's nice, but you can actually get better at giving encouragement. It's like, I was so excited with the work you did in the party because people had a blast there. That pin the tail on the donkey thing hit. I'm just like, it's like you and I actually get better at giving compliments, which is part of it. We don't want to just handle conflict, but by saying, this is the emotional response your hard work had on me, you're giving people a gift. You're building intimacy. You're building connection. It's better than, hey, that dress looks nice. It's like, I feel so attracted. Like, I won't be able to take my eyes off you tonight because that dress, well, that's a good compliment. It's coming. Some of you are like, really? You say this thing? Yeah, I mean, it's like, give a good compliment rather than, you look nice tonight. Look fine. That's good. Trust me. This deal where you're saying, so could we? So I need. It's really important for powerful people, powerful and gentle people, to make their needs known. So this is what I need. Could you please come to work on time? Could you adjust your time schedule so that you get my project done before you get any other project done, and start making your needs known as you're communicating with one another. So do you think you can clean the kitchen in the next hour or two? Would you like me to help? So this whole thing where you're like, I feel when, because, so could we, incredibly powerful, incredibly powerful. I do have time, I think, for you to turn and to practice this for just at least once, to say it out loud. And so what I want you to do right now is just think of a situation. You can either make it up or it can be one that's happened this morning, whichever one you want to do. Maybe not happen this morning, because I got some more to say for about 20 minutes. But would you right now, what I want you to do is to think of a situation, any situation that you want, just make it up in your head, and use one of the mad, sad, glad, egad. So use one of those four. You can say unconnected, concerned. These are all okay. They're not as powerful as the emotions. Does that make sense, everybody? I felt, frustrated is anger. That's an emotion. But sometimes I'll use concerned or what was the other one I said? Unconnected. And those are legitimate, I think, but they're more powerful when you get below those safer words and talk about the emotional impact somebody's having with you. Some of the reason we don't is because people tell us, well, you shouldn't feel that way, right? And then yes, I understand that in your code book I shouldn't feel that way. But to build connection, I'm trying to let you know how I'm being impacted by this situation. What I want you to do is to make something up. Turn to a neighbor, say, I feel, pick one of those four emotions, make up a non-blaming description of the problem, a non-blaming description, and you're going to give feedback like, that sounds like a pretty blaming one. And then do a because, and make up the because, like because my father talked to me that way, or because it made me feel disrespected, or whatever else. So ready, set, go. And the person with the longest hair should start. And person with the longest hair, that's an old youth group trick right there. Person with the longest hair should start, and or most, I guess. So ready, set, go. Just two, just one on one there, if you would. Wrap it up if you would. Good. All right, we're in the home stretch. Shh. We're in the home stretch here. Somebody just had a question. I felt hurt when. Is hurt a masking word? No, hurt's not a masking word, but it does kind of contain oftentimes sadness and fear and anger all mixed together. And so I think it's an appropriate word. It's just sometimes in my world has been more powerful when I've actually used an emotion word rather than I feel unconcerned or unconnected or that whole deal. All right, let's take a look at hear like you've never heard before. Oh, do I want to go there yet? Let me tell you a story real quickly. I was doing some counseling and with a couple, and they were going through a very difficult season. It looked something like this. He would come home very excited to see his new wife of like 2 years or 3 years, and she would be at home. And for the first part of the day, she was excited that he was coming home. But as it got closer to the fact he's coming home, she started getting more and more anxious about him coming home. So anxious that she began to withdraw and shut down. And so here's this young new husband, about 2.5 years married, comes in very excited to connect with his wife and opens up, and right away there's a vibe of, hey, honey. And she keeps her eyes on the TV and just kind of looks out the corner of her eye and says, hey, like she's into the TV. That'll knock you off stride. First thing into the house, regularly happening. And so he, was like, this is what I need to do. I need to give her space. So he'd go, it's good to see you. I'm going to go and check the email. So he'd go check the email, and he's giving her space, never saying, I'm giving you space. He's just checking the email. She gets more frustrated because, he's really disconnected and withdrawing from me, and then more panicky. I'm making him withdraw from me because I'm withdrawn and I don't know how to get out of this. And so here we are in this big swirl. It's all happened within the first, it's happened outside of their connection, but it's all happened within the first 30 seconds of them being in the same room together. And so part of their healing in their relationship was just realizing that they could employ these tools to start talking about some of the deeper issues of their connection with one another. And so these are not merely tools to these tools work with the mechanic, like, I am very frustrated with the size of this bill because it's not what I agreed to. What are you going to do about that? It's very powerful. It works with the mechanic. It works with your senior pastor. It works with the junior high kids. It works in your closest and most intimate relationships for being able to stay in the moment of connection. And so what we ended up kind of, doing is that these folks would spin out of control for about 2 hours. They really wouldn't connect at all, and it would get weirder and weirder in the house till somehow they were eating in silence together, having dinner, and, just what's going on in this relationship. What they ended up doing, though, was the skill of checking things out, sending iMessages, and active and reflective listening. So you open the door. Hey, honey, it's great to see you. Hi. All right, he comes in a little bit. Comes in, just gets some food, making some small talk, and she's like not being fully present. So he learned to just kind of go, I'm going to check this out. Honey, I'm wondering if you need some space. Because I'm kind of confused. I've been looking forward to seeing you all day, but you seem kind of quiet. Do you want me to give you some space? Or do you need me to come close? That skill of checking out, I wonder what's going on. I'm having confusion, and I'm unsure as a new husband. Do I come close at this time, or do I give you space at this time? And she didn't know the answer. I mean, she didn't know what she needed or what she wanted, but the freedom to be able to kind of say, and she'd be like, I don't know. I do feel disconnected. I do feel withdrawn. It's like, all right, I feel connected to you, and I want to connect with you, but I'm going to go and I'm going to check the email, and I'm going to come back and check on you a little while and see how you're doing. I'm not hiding from you in there. I'm just doing stuff until you and I can connect. Where we're giving information to each other, using the skills of, I'm wondering if, iMessages, I'm confused. Eventually she began to use iMessages. I feel anxious as the time gets closer to you coming home because I don't feel connected, and I think you're going to be interested in having sex later tonight. And I'm not sure if I'm warm and responsive now, if you think that's going to happen tonight. And I'm not sure I want that to happen tonight. And so it's like, oh, here we go. We're into real marriage counseling now. We're into real life now. So it's like, as they begin to unpack that whole thing, it's like anxiety about later tonight was impacting their first arrival there. And, as you can imagine, those either married, that's making a big mess in their connection with each other, a big mess in their sexual relationship. But these tools of just, I'm wondering, iMessages, she's able to go, I'm anxious when you come home because I'm already thinking about, 4 hours from now and how exhausted and how, I'm bringing in where we've been in the last week and all these sorts of things. So these messages are not simply one-time events. You can stay in a counseling situation with somebody or stay in a conflict with somebody and continue to elicit solutions to the conflict and intimacy with one another. Let's go into this here like you've never heard before. Also equally powerful when you're having conflict. Use these skills again when you hear or have strong emotions, when you hear or have confusion, when a person clearly communicates they have a problem, when you hear or have a problem, and when you are problem solving, like making plans or hearing another's point of view. Before I go into these, I kind of made up these titles because I've heard them taught different ways all the time. So you might find these in a communication book labeled with a different label. These just feel like the names that I've heard that make the most sense to me about the style of listening. The first one is reflective listening. Just like the title, it indicates reflective listening means you mirror the statement you just heard. Sometimes you do it without the inflection, the tone of the emotions, and sometimes you do it with. Your wife is frustrated because for several years you've waited until the last moment to schedule your vacation with your boss, and you seem to be doing it again. You already feel silly for doing this, she especially when you know it bothers her. So you feel really defensive about it. She sends you a good old iMessage. I feel anxious and frustrated when you put off scheduling our vacation because part of the fun for me is the weeks of looking forward to and dreaming about vacation. This is a real life scenario for me here, by the way. Yeah, I'm the sort of guy who's just like, I'm really exhausted. I'm not coming in next week. You know, like I save my vacation, I hoard them like little days to spend, that sort of deal. My wife's the exact opposite. You could say we're vacationing in 6 months, and she's like, she'll spend 6 months on the web, and 6 months, it's this growing anticipation of the joy of vacation. And I think her way's a lot better, frankly. But it took me a while to realize, oh, that's what's going on here. She's not trying to like make me feel like a monkey for not talking to my boss. She's like, I am excited to go on vacation. And the anticipation is as good as the event. Whereas people say to me, are you excited about your child being born? I'm like, I will be that day. I mean, people like, are you excited about going to Europe? I go like, yeah, when I get on the plane in 2 weeks. Who gets excited 2 weeks before they go somewhere? That's just more my style. It's more my code book, than it is. So anyway, I kind of learned that, I love that she's kind of gotten me better at this. I think her ways actually makes a lot more sense. I enjoy looking, going, there's the finish line. I'm going to be able to rest and recreate right there in 2 months rather than I'm exhausted, somebody roll me into my bed for a week. All right. Instead of, so anyway, she sends this message. So instead of reacting, explaining, or defending yourself, you first step in to repeat exactly what she said. You feel anxious and frustrated when I put off scheduling our vacation because part of the fun for you is the weeks of looking forward to and dreaming about it. Listen, you mock and you think, I'll never do that. I might as well be a parrot. It's like this, try it. Try this before you mock it. When I was in school, they would show couples in couples therapy. They'd say, listen, I want you guys to talk about this upcoming crisis you guys have, and I want you to speak and then say exactly back what you had heard the other person do. And then the therapist would leave the room, and this couple would know they're on video camera. I said these couples, and they could not help themselves. They always had to add or twist or nuance or explain away, just shade a little bit, the message that they were getting through their own filter. The ability to let an unadulterated message come in and go out again was almost beyond them. It was almost beyond them. It is an incredibly powerful thing to do, to just repeat exactly the message. It does feel like the same thing as an iMessage. Uncomfortable. I'm not sure how I can do this. There are times when I'll say, hey, I'm feeling confused. I'm going to just do reflective listening, or I'm going to repeat what you say. And some people, I leave off the part, what I heard you say is, and sometimes couples counselors and therapists will say, what I heard you say is, and that's for me the part that feels cheesy sometimes, is when I keep what I heard you say. So I like to leave that off because I actually believe this is an incredibly powerful skill, and I use it all the time. And so if I need to leave that off because that makes me feel less cheesy, then that's what I do. That's what I do about it. Chris Valentin, very powerful guy in my life and in our culture. He, about 6 years ago or so, he taps me on the shoulder and says, hey, can I talk to you? I said, yep. He walks like this. We open his office door. I walk inside. He closes it, turns to me and says, you are driving me crazy. First words out of his mouth. My senior leader. Or one of my senior leaders. Powerful guy, a guy that's very articulate. Don't want to get in a word fight with Chris very well. Just smart guy. I was shocked, uncomfortable immediately, flushed, incredibly defensive. How dare you start a conversation? I had it all. I had my upbringing was ready to go, like, oh, here we go. Somebody likes to do the rough and tumble too, and he does. So it's like, so. But it was just this. The skills kicked in. The years of practice of just this being normal, and I just said back to him, "I'm driving you crazy." And then he went on to tell me how crazy I was driving him, and what I was doing that was driving him crazy. But that moment of just not reacting, of just saying, I'm driving you crazy, of saying exactly what he said back to me, it enabled him to just kind of articulate quickly the things that he was frustrated with me about, and then we had a conversation. But I could feel the desire to tear into him. I could feel the desire. It's like, that's permission. You just, those are fighting words, and I'm powerful too. Who goats? And I know, and he, all that's going, it's on, totally. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to leave all that aside, as delicious and marvelous as that sounds at some level. I'm going to leave that aside. And I was going to go with my reflective listening. I'm driving you crazy. And he had 3 points, and one of them was absolutely accurate, dead on, about how I wasn't taking responsibility, I was avoiding responsibility, that I was handling myself, wasn't taking on the role of a father in the house. Incredibly painful to hear, incredibly accurate. And I would have missed that message. I would have missed that message and the growth that's gone on in my life since that message if I'd have responded in defensiveness. I thank God for that day that I didn't miss that message from him, because something clicked where I have been here at that point about 10 years. Renewal was really hard for me to adjust to. I'm not sure of my role. I am a little withdrawn and disconnecting. I don't have my footing, and I have been kind of not trying to be very responsible. I don't even know if I ever said it out loud to myself, but I had slipped into some mode. And him confronting me was incredibly important to my success in ministry in the years since then. Now, he had 2 other points that were miscommunication or confusion points, and we went through those. But that whole thing of not panicking in the moment, just giving is exactly what I heard you say, opened the door to a meaningful, teachable conversation that could have been a mess and a disaster. So, and I'm not responsible for Chris's style. I'm only responsible for me in the midst of conflict and communication. So what his choice of beginning the conversation and those things, those are his choices. I can talk about how they impact me. I can talk about how I respond to them. But at that point, I wasn't mad, frankly, because I'm powerful and not a victim. And I can listen and say, there's a really helpful bit of information coming my way. I'd be really wise to receive this from this guy. And then the other things we could talk through. This gives you time to appreciate the good stuff she's communicating in the example. Like she looks forward to your vacation together, and you've married a woman who enjoys anticipation. Before you explain or communicate that vacation works differently for you, so you didn't know it worked that way for her. Simply put, this skill helps the present message to really sink in. So you are not reacting to last month's conversation. It enables you to respond and not react, because the message giver it causes the message giver to hear the words they just gave you, and that's actually very important. It causes them to hear the words they just gave you. In the case of horrible, painful messages, the sender has their own words repeated so they can experience their sharpness. You hate me and think I'm ruining your life. All right. Well, I feel extremely hurt or extremely frustrated. And so then we go on. We use our I messages at that point. But this whole thing of reflective listening is incredibly powerful, where you're just reflecting exactly what they gave. Let me just illustrate it this way. I hate homework. This kid pops off, I hate homework. We want to say to him, you better do homework to get a good job. You better do homework or you're going to be a bum. I hated homework too. Let me tell you a story about me. When I was your age, and then we go into a story about us. And me too, let's never do homework again. I'm using reverse psychology, though I have no idea how it really works. We just have a myriad of ways. I'm going to tease you out of it, I'll solve it for you. Let me solve it. Come here, get your book out. I'll solve it. Let's do this. I'll teach you how to do it. We do all these things. And instead, if we just go, I hate homework. You hate homework. Yeah, my teacher hates me. Your teacher hates you. She hates all the boys. She hates all the boys. Yeah. We could have got into a whole conversation about how I expect you to get into Yale. Because we have a destiny for your life and we're taking the 7 mountains, baby. I mean, we could have gone there. But reflective listening with this kid gets me into what's the kid's really going on. The kid is having an interaction with the teacher and feels like she's unfair to all the boys. And it's like, well, now I can get in there. Help me understand. Really, what's that look like? Now I can start getting some information. I can connect before I give content. Where, well, listen, you better do your homework. I'm going to spank your butt. I mean, that's where we go almost right away. Let me give you some content. And this idea of reflective listening lets you stay in, connecting. And when you're doing reflective listening and active listening, we're going to talk about in just a moment, the people will actually tell you you're doing a good job because they'll go, yeah, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, yeah, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, yeah. And then when we get into active listening, you sometimes will guess wrong, and they'll go, no, it's this. And that's equally is powerful and important to do. So this idea of reflective listening, it's not the only skill. You get into counseling and this is your only skill, you're in trouble. Oh, you're in so much trouble. But it has to be one of the skills that you use counseling your kids, that you use in conflict and resolution, you use in building intimacy. You're on the plane and somebody says, oh, I hate Christians and I think they're just a bunch of hypocrites. Like, oh, well, you hate Christians and think they're hypocrites. Tell me more. Well, my dad was a hypocrite and beat me. They're like, oh, this is not about a general philosophical issue. They don't need a truth encounter. They need a person encounter with the love and forgiveness of the Holy Spirit. So when you stay with reflective listening, you're able to stay you're actually able to go after what's really in the person's heart. Minister directly to that. Active listening. Listen to the emotion first, not the content. Listen, when a kid drops an F-bomb on you, it is really easy to listen to the content. But in active listening, you're listening for the emotion. When you're fighting with your spouse and they're taking serious swipes at you, when your fellow workers are sending demeaning or sarcastic messages, it's easy to listen to content. But active listening is where you fish in, like there's a mad, sad, glad, or egad message in there somewhere. I'm going to try to catch it. I'm going to try to catch it and say it out loud to them. Listen to the emotion first, not the content. Reflect the emotion to see if you got it right. You sound excited. I am excited. Man, the teacher said nobody had ever done that good. That is awesome. You seem hurt. I am hurt. You frustrated? No, I'm not frustrated. I'm mad. Oh, okay. Draw out the feelings they have, even if they don't know what they're feeling. And oftentimes people do not know. You and I don't know. We're trying to pay attention to our body. What's really going on with me? Is this anxiety? Is this anger? What's going on? Our kids sometimes don't know. Our spouses, our bosses, our coworkers don't know. In other words, listen, use reflective listening, nod and say, I get that. And when and if it's appropriate, ask if they want your take or your input. That's that idea of connect first, content second. Usually when you give advice, I'd really recommend this. Let me advise you this, even though you didn't give it. Well, let me do it to you. Is it okay if I give you some advice? Yeah. There we go. Thank you. That's what you should do. When you're giving advice, I have some input. Is now a good time, or would you like to hear? Save many a fight and painful interaction with my wife, because I'll have some interaction about, I don't know, her connection to her mother or her family or something like that, and, sometimes it's not a really good plan to jump right in there and start giving advice to the wife. I don't know if the rest of you realize that or not, but but when I say, hey, I have some input or some thoughts about that, is now a good time to talk about them? Or can I share them? She has permission to say no. I'm a king of helpful information, if you haven't figured that out in the last hour and 45 minutes. So I'm ready for advice all the time. Banning wants to, I'm going to buy a car. I'm like, I read Consumer Reports, and I have information for you about that. So I'm walking fountain of advice and information. Some people love it. Most people, not so much. And but when I ask permission, when I say, I have some input, I have some advice, would you like to hear it? It's been very, very freeing for me and for the other person that I'm giving advice to. This skill helps, active listening, this skill helps articulate the emotions and makes them feel safe with you. It allows love and connection to do healing instead of information. It builds intimacy and equips you to stand in the storm with someone. People feel less threatened that your agenda is to manipulate them or change them, and it encourages deeper talking instead of only dealing with problem solving. In order for active listening to succeed, you have to cultivate a couple of attitudes. You've got to be able to genuinely accept a person's feeling. Trust that the Holy Spirit will change them instead of you having to change them. Know that feelings change like a traffic light. See the other, even your kids, as people who are separate from you. They are not you. And most importantly, you've got to want to hear. Let me just talk about that one thing. It's how many of us have had our parents say, you love wearing yellow. You love hockey. Or something like, no, you love hockey. I can't stand hockey. And you buy me everything yellow. I've never bought a yellow thing for myself in my life. Those sort of things. Now, we would use different messages for that. But oftentimes as parents, we're struggling with projecting our desires and wants for them onto them, thinking it's them. And, and we've been the subject of that as well. So we need to realize that just because somebody's having an emotion, they're not us. They're not us. Those of us that get embarrassed by something our spouse does, they're not you. If you're always trying to clean up and keep them from embarrassing you, it's going to make a mess. Best thing to do is just go, that's their personhood. That's their decision. That's their choice. I love them. I'm married to them. But, they're responsible for what they're doing. I don't have to be embarrassed by that. I don't have to go around trying to clean up and make nice or, shh, honey, any of that crazy stuff. Let them be. They're not you. They're not you. All right. And most importantly, you've got to want to hear. Don't open up a person's heart and then run off because you're late or tired. If you can't spend the time, offer to schedule a time when you can spend time with them. Finally, don't use active listening when the person obviously needs something else from you. Nancy, have you seen the scissors? Jim, you seem really anxious about the scissors. Now, if they're in your she's stuck them in your back, then yeah, maybe so. But otherwise, thank you. Active listening, reflective listening, incredibly powerful. I'm sitting with when I was a singles pastor, one of the single moms who'd just done a fabulous job, I felt, raising her 5 kids with a really not so helpful ex-husband, and having great conflict with her 17-year-old. And I'd really never known her or met her very much, but I'm like, hey, can I talk to her? And they're like, really? I don't think it's a good idea. And I'm like, no, I'd like to talk with her. And so, so mom brings her in, and I'm sitting there with single mom. I think has done a great job in my single group, and potty mouth 17-year-old. So really angry potty mouth 17-year-old. And so I'm here, and as soon as we sit down, I don't know why I'm here. This blankety blank woman and this blankety blank. You've been talking to her for 6 months, and I don't see any blankety blank change. This whole thing's just blankety blank, and just F-bomb after F-bomb exploding. I can totally feel my desire to reach across the desk and strangle her growing in my head and my heart. The disrespect message in the house of God. I mean, the disrespect is just brutal. And so I can feel all those things, but we're doing brave communication, right? So it's like listening for a while, and I look at mom and say, hey, can you give her and I just a few minutes alone? Mom looks at me like, are you some sort of freak? Do you have a backup? That sort of deal. Is there a gun in your desk? So I say, hey, give us a few minutes alone. Mom goes out, and I say, listen, you sound really mad. Yeah, I'm mad, blah, 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 blah. It's like, and I just reflected back, really? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, totally frustrating. Totally frustrating. Blah, 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 blah. F-bombs get less, whatever else. I'm not giving any advice, no counsel at all. It's all active listening, reflective listening. And she and I, over the course of 20 minutes, build a connection. Because I haven't listened to the content. It's all designed to throw me off being interested. It's all designed to be self-protective. It's all designed to do something else other than to bring a connection. But through active and reflective listening, through an iMessage or two, like, I'm, blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, I was really frustrated and scared when you started swearing in here, but, I'm here for you, or whatever. We build a connection over about 20, 25 minutes. We actually get to some, hey, let's look at how we could solve some things. Can I give you some input? I guess. If you have to, all right, I'll take that as a yes. So I give a little bit of input there. And about 40 minutes later, I'm like, hey, could you send mom back in? And I remember the look in this young, 17-year-old girl's eyes, like, what voodoo have you worked on me? Because last time when mom left, she was really livid and determined that she was going to hate me with every fiber of my body, and I had nothing to say to her or help her. But by the time mom came back, that was a trigger for her to realize, I'm not as angry as I was 40 minutes ago, and I actually have a little bit of a connection with this dude. And active and reflective listening will build a connection. It will build a connection with people, and a really strong connection. And with the kids that you're trying to disciple, the kids you're trying to pastor, it'll help you understand what the real issues they're after before you start launching into some story about your childhood or launching into the problem with youth these days or, whatever we're tempted to get into. You can actually get to the real particular root and use some of these, what we call door openers, where it's, then what? Tell me more. Then what happened? It's just, if you remember those 4, then what? Tell me more. So what happened next? And these kids will start unlocking the secrets of their heart to you and enabling you to connect with them. And you'll decide, do I have helpful content? And is now the time to give it to them. So I heartily recommend these skills of active and reflective listening. They're amazing in counseling. They're also amazing in the moment. Suppose you're driving in the car here and you're on a 2-lane highway with just divided by a double yellow line. You have to make a left-hand turn. You're clipping along about 65 miles an hour along this kind of wooded mountain pass, and there's signs for the roads are so small you can hardly see them. And behind you, everybody else is traveling along pretty fast. And up ahead, you identify, that's my left turn. I got to take that left turn right there. And you look even further out and you say, there's about 6 cars coming along at 65 miles an hour, and I have about 2 cars right behind me going about 65 miles an hour. I'm going to have to make this left turn. Here I go. And so in front of oncoming traffic, you pull in and make a left-hand turn. In your mind, it is a nice bit of driving. In your wife's mind, who's sitting in the passenger seat, unaware of how incredible that driving mood was. Begins to just yell at you, stop the car. That's it. You nearly killed me. You nearly got us killed again. It's just like you did last year. Get out. I want to drive. Get out, get out, get out. I want to drive. I'm not going another step. Stop the car. Stop the car. It's just all this stuff happens. Because, it was really a dangerous moment. You thought it was a nifty move. It was a dangerous moment. And what happens is you want to defend yourself. You want to go, you have no idea. You have no idea what was in the rearview mirror. We had 3 cars behind us going 65 miles an hour. If I didn't do this now, the next turnaround's probably for 4 miles up there. And then so I've never had an accident. You've had 2 accidents, as a matter of fact, honey. And I've never had 1 accident. And so here we go. We're doing it here. And this is how, it's not what we're fighting about, it's the way we do conflict that's just so destructive in our relationships. And so, active listening, think about it with me. What is your active listening response when your wife or your husband lays into you about what a horrible driver you are and almost got them killed, and how you don't care about them because you would have survived the accident, but I'd be dead because it's the passenger side? How do you do active listening there? What do you say? I scared you, didn't I, honey? You sound scared. You sound scared. Yes, I'm scared because you're the world's worst driver and you suck. You're horrible at it. And so it's like, all right, baby, you're mad. That was totally scared you, and you're mad. I totally got this. Not my heart for you. Yes, well, it's the same thing you did 2 weeks ago. That whole thing. Blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, all right. I understand that you're upset, and I totally scared you. Please forgive me. That was not what I was up to. I don't care if that's not what you were up to. You nearly got me killed. It's like, I get it. Forgive me, hon. I will. I don't want to put you in danger. That is not my plan for driving the car. I'm sorry that I scared you. Just staying with the motion. She's mad and scared. He's mad and scared. And you keep touching that. I know you're mad and scared. That makes sense that you're mad and scared. I'm sorry I made you mad and scared. Ignoring all the content that's coming that's designed to diminish and destroy and just to punish and say, as mad as I feel, I want to make you right now. So here I go. I'm going to use all my tools. You ignore all that content, and you're just staying with the emotion. What a lot of men do is withdraw emotionally, just like, okay, she's out of control. I'm going to get smaller and withdraw, and she'll up the ante, and I'll get more and more withdrawn, and I'll look at her like, look at you all out of control. You should be like me, honey. But when we love people, in the moment when you make a bad, or maybe a great left turn, I don't know, I wasn't in the car with you. But when you make a choice and there's a crisis, you do have an opportunity to destroy your connection in your relationship. You also have an opportunity to build a deeper, more loving, more lasting connection if you'll ignore the content, not ignore it in a dismissive way, but you'll engage the emotion first. It's maybe a better way to say it. Engage the emotion first and take responsibility for what's going on in the situation. It's incredibly powerful. Well, there's my ideas of brave communication that I want to pass along to you. Yeah.
Didn't I tell you it'd be good? Let me say just a few things really quickly, because I'm going. You're going to move into prophetic ministry while I go watch my little girl play a soccer game. So I've got to rush really quickly to go make sure I catch that. What he's teaching right now, I cannot stress enough, has been massive for our ministry, because everything comes down to connection and to communication and to relationships. It all does. And so having these skills is just such a big deal. I want you to buy his stuff, which I hope the bookstore's open. If it's not, I guess you can do it online. In fact, I'm not even going to make this available this morning online, because I want you to get this stuff. I want you to, it'll have all this, and I want you to begin to put it among your leaders. You'll begin to see a shift in how you're connecting with young people, how you're connecting with one another, your spouses, everything. Yeah, this has actually been massive in my marriage as well. And so I really want, and I had a near perfect marriage before. Yeah, it was pretty much, yes. And so I want you to do that. And let me just say so, because I do have to leave. Can I just go down a list really quickly of things? Because this stuff right now you're going to have to listen to 2 or 3 times. I have listened to, he had 4 CDs he did in School of Ministry. That's where I bootlegged them. And I've listened to them. I've listened to them multiple times. I just listened to them multiple times. I need to get this stuff in because you got some stuff this morning, but you didn't get all of it. Just trying to get this in. And the truth is I have, we have a lot of people that kind of think like, well, that's like Weight Watchers. It just doesn't work for me. Honestly, you know what I'm saying? It's like, that one just doesn't work for me. I tried it and it just didn't feel authentic. It didn't feel genuine. And I tried it for a while and it didn't work. And they're like, I tried that and we just got in a fight. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of like, they try it and it doesn't work because they don't, their skills are, you know what I'm saying? It's like, because they do. They're like, I feel like you're an idiot.
Yeah.
They're like, I tried to tell them how I was feeling and it didn't work.
Totally. Yeah.
So I did, I'm not doing that. And I'm just telling you, if you can really say, hey, I'm going to work on this thing, and it may not go all smooth at first, and it's going to feel not genuine, not authentic, and you're going to go, I feel, like, where's my cheat sheet?
Totally.
I feel
Put it on your hand.
when...
You should write it right on your hand.
No, totally.
A tattoo? Like a tattoo would be cool right there.
Perfect.
That'd be totally.
Probably a tattoo on their forehead. But they, it really, I just want to encourage you to do this, buy the stuff, listen through it, get this stuff in, and I promise you, you will become a better leader, spouse, person, human being, all the way around. And so, sound good? Let me just say one thing really quickly. The goal of this is connection. Mm-hmm. And if one thing you can get in is this, your job is not to fix anybody. It's not to control anybody. It's not to change. I guess we want to change people, but our goal is not, like when I'm connecting, my goal is not to control you or change you or fix you somehow. And even these skills, if you haven't figured that out, you're just in trouble. Mm-hmm. And even like, I tell people all the time, they're like, I'm like so nervous. Like, I'm like, go connect with them, go talk to them. They're like, I just don't know. And my thing is like, hey, as long as you stay in the iMessages, you're fine. Mm-hmm. Because you can ramble around and you cannot say the right thing as long as it's in the iMessages. Mm-hmm. As long as you're just trying to take what's inside of you and let them know what's going on for the purpose of I'm trying to connect because there's a disconnect, then you can't really go wrong. Mm-hmm. Because iMessages are never offensive. In fact, many times when I'll share an iMessage and somebody will automatically get on defense because that's just the mode. That's what we do. I say something, you go on the defense. And I'm able to go, no, I'm sorry. Listen, I'm actually not trying to tell you what you're doing. I'm just trying to tell you what's going on inside of me. I'm just trying to tell you what's going on with me. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to fix you or change you, you know what I'm saying? And you can really get in that mode. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That even if they begin to get defensive, as long as you stay in the I world, you can't go wrong. And you're feeling that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel this whenever you're doing this. Well, I'm not trying to do that. Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to tell you that you're trying to do that. I'm just telling you that's what I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not going to judge your heart. And we think sometimes we all know everybody's hearts, and so we're going in to fix your heart because your heart is evil. I'm serious. Like, we got this. Like, I got you figured out, buddy. Mm-hmm. I know why you're treating me like that because you're a jerk, and so mm-hmm. I'm gonna try to fix that jerk thing in you. And so it's like, hey, I feel sad or I feel hurt when you do this. Well, I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to hurt you. Oh, I didn't say you're trying to hurt me. I'm just telling you this is what's going on with me. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And as long as you can stay in the I world, you're totally fine. You're totally fine. You can bumble through this stuff as you're learning as long as you can stay in the I world. And the other thing that he said, I'm just trying to tell you this as you're going to go into this learning thing. The other thing that Dan really, really helped me with was this issue of if you don't know what to say, which is what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I had Dan and I had Danny, and I would be constantly going, I don't know what to say. I'm just going to this meeting. I don't know what to say. And they would just kind of tell me. And I would write down notes. And before I got in the meeting, I'd just be looking over my notes. I wouldn't have them out, but man, I'd be looking over them because I'm going. But if you don't know what to say, do what Dan said. Let them in on your thought process. Let them in on your internal world. And what I began to find was, as I was learning this stuff, because I wasn't a black belt yet. I wasn't a ninja or whatever, It
takes many years.
I was a Padawan or whatever that is. I wasn't that good at it. And so when I began to find I'd get stuck or I wouldn't quite know how to talk, I would just kind of let them in on my world. And what I found was, as I would let them in on my thought process, it communicated value to them in a way I never knew. Like I would be able to sit down and go, hey, Charles, listen, I've got all this stuff going on. I want to somehow connect, but I'm really scared, like right now, that we're going to do this and it's not going to go well, and then we're just going to get disconnected, and you're too important to me to get I would just kind of let them in on my thought process of like, I want to do this, but I don't even know what I'm doing, but I want to communicate without being offensive, and and all of a sudden people are like, wow. Like, you really care about me enough that you've been thinking about this for a while. And I'm just telling you, it's one of the most amazing things, just to let people in your thought process. Like, here's what's going on in my head right now. And they'd be like, what? It's just crazy how all of a sudden they actually began to build some connection, some intimacy, and because they're like, you actually value me enough to actually be actually really anxious about meeting with me, because I value you. I don't want like there to be a huge disconnect between us. But what I feel like I'm about to say, I might screw it up and there might be a disconnect. Does that make sense what I'm saying? As you're beginning to work through this thing and learn. And then the last one, and then I'm going to go, is this. If you don't get down this issue of seek first to understand and then to be understood, which is quite frankly a lot of the reflective listening, a lot of the active listening, you're trying to understand, it just won't work. And a lot of us, even if you're my personality, it's like I'm getting into a meeting and I know enough to listen, but I'm pretty much listening just so you'll be done so I can tell you what I've got going on. And this is what happens. Like, I'm kind of listening long enough because I got a lot of stuff I'm about ready to tell you, and I know, like, I got to listen first. Okay, boom. And you got to go in going, I'm seeking first to understand. And one of the things, Danny is hands down the best counselor, assessor of people, assessor of situations I've ever seen. It's uncanny. But you know what he still does? He told me one time, he goes, I go into every counseling situation. He's been doing this for years. He's a master's in this stuff. He goes, I go into every counseling situation going, I don't really have the answer. I don't really know what's going on. I don't know what's going on right now. Like, I don't know what the problem is. Because he goes, there's been plenty of times where I thought I knew what the problem was, and that wasn't the problem. And so that type of thing where you're going in going, I don't know what the problem is. Like, I don't have the answer right now. I don't know what the problem is. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm going to go in and let's try to poke around and find out. I actually am trying to get some information. I'm trying to kind of understand, And half the time when people feel disconnected or all this type of stuff, it's only because they don't feel like you actually hear them, understand them, or even know where they're coming from. My wife, all she wants to know is that I actually understand where she's coming from. I actually hear her. All of you know this, but she doesn't want my, incredible skills at solving problems. I feel they're a little wasted, but I got some pretty good problem-solving skills. She doesn't want that. All she wants to know is that I'm actually hearing her and understanding her. And so that's just that seek first to understand what's going on. I'm just trying to actually connect with you, like what's going on with you. That solves most of the problems, And then this last thing, checking things out. Checking things out. I'm just kind of reviewing for you, but you need to go get this stuff. Checking things out will save you so many problems. If you just check things out and you create a culture around you where people are able to check things out. It's like, hey, are you mad at me? I kind of feel it. You're mad at me. Oh, I'm not mad at you at all. Oh, I'm sorry you're getting that. And like, oh, okay. It's gone. It's gone. It's like that thing that I've been walking in a week. It's like, oh, it's just not, I just had to check it out. It literally took 30 seconds to solve that. And if you can create a culture around you where you're just kind of checking things out all the time, and then all of a sudden, like, I am mad at you. Oh, I'm just telling you. So, but you've got to get this stuff, and I can't stress this enough. If you've got to get this stuff, buy these CDs, and you may have to go online because I don't know if the bookstore's open. Buy these CDs, get them to your leaders, work through this stuff, and you'll begin to create a culture around you that you'll think, I don't know why I haven't been living like this. Okay, sound good? Anything else?
No.
Okay.